So today we're going to be making a baby quilt, and I'm going to be using the fabric that I received in my Temu haul. So I've used the fabric previously to make some tissue holders, and I'll put a link to that tutorial in the description below, and they turned out really well. Okay, so I did receive a jelly roll, and what I'm going to do is there were 40 strips in this roll, and they measured 2.5 inches by 19 3/4 inches. Now because I'm making a baby quilt, I'm going to take 8 of the strips out. And I've already got those separated out, and I'm going to put those aside. If you're going to be making a toddler quilt, you'll leave those in. You'll use all 40 strips. And I'll show you an example of the baby quilt and the toddler quilt at the end of the video. So I'll just put those aside for now. Now you get 2 patterns the same. So what I've done is I've split these strips into 2 piles. And what I'm going to do, okay, so is I'm going to turn one pile over. Okay, I've just taken an extra strip there, just a moment. I'll sort that out. Okay, so I'm going to take one and I'm going to turn it over because we don't want the strips matching each other as we're sewing them together. Now we're going to be making this like a jelly roll race quilt, and I'll put some links to other larger size quilts that we made using this method. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take one strip off one pile and one off the other, and I'll place them right sides together, and I'm just going to sew them, just even up the edges nicely, and I'm going to sew them together across the narrow width with a 1/4 inch seam. And then as I finish that one, I'll just pick up another one and keep on doing that from each pile. And you can shuffle them around a bit because you don't want the same patterns near each other. So we'll just do that. We'll get started on that and see how we go. Okay, so I have my 2 piles here, one facing up, one facing down, and I'm going to take a strip from each pile. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the edges together and sew them together with a 1/4 inch seam. Just make sure they're nice and neat and all lined up. Okay, come over here. Okay, so that's our first 2 strips done together, and what I'll do next is I'll come over and I'll take the next strip, and it doesn't matter which pile you take it from. As I say, we want to mix them up as much as possible, and again just put the edges together and just sew it. You can see that I've got my handy magnet here. This is wonderful. It also came from Temu, and I love it because it's so long, and so everything just runs along it nicely. And I just set it together using my ruler here, and I put the needle through the 1/4 inch and line up the magnet with it. It's brilliant, and it's so strong it just does not move. Now you may have noticed as I've been sewing, I've been breaking the thread as I go, but you don't need to do that. Okay, so take your last strip, make sure it's face side up. Bring in your new strip and place it face side down. Then make sure the edges meet. Okay, and we're just going to sew off the edge, and now make sure that that one is face side up and that the next one is face side down. Okay, so and then you can clip all those pieces apart at the end. So it's up to you, you know, just how you do it. But that's just showing you an alternative method of doing it. Alright, so I've sewn everything together, and now I'm just going to clip apart those bits that I chain pieced. So just cut those threads, just like that. Okay, so now on the first strip that we have here, I'm going to cut off about 9.5 inches. It's approximately halfway, and the reason we do that is because we want the look to be staggered. Okay. What we're going to do now is we want to run our strips through, and I'm just going to put the 2 ends together, the 2, as you can see here. I'm just going to run them through my hand because I want to take out any tangles. Alright, so it's just a matter of just running the 2 strips together. So we don't want any twists and turns in them. Now if you've got a friend over for a cup of tea, one of you can take one end and the other one can walk a long distance away with the other end, and you can make sure that this is all untangled. And when you've got strip, just one long nice strip, you can bring the two ends together and you'll be set. But when you're doing it on your own, I'm sure you'll come up with some innovative method of doing this, but I'm just, as I have to do it on camera, I'll just keep doing it this way, running it through and untwisting it. So I have it all smoothed out now. A lot of people don't bother doing this because they don't worry about the fact that there's tangles at the end because you're going to cut it. I like to make sure I maximise my fabric, so I like to smooth it all out and make sure that everything is nice and flat. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take, we've got our two ends here, I'm just going to line those up and we're going to sew all the way down that strip. Now if you want, you can pin them, and you can see here I've got my handy dandy pin cushion from Temu, but you really don't need to. You can just go ahead and sew with your 1/4 inch seam all the way down. It's entirely up to you, but if you're going to pin it, it is going to take you a while. So here we are at the machine, and I'm going to sew all the way down the strip with a 1/4 inch seam. And when I come to a seam line, I'll just simply push it down and sew on through. And the same with the ones underneath. I'll just push it through with my fingers and keep it flat. Okay, so here we are. We have our bundle of strips sewn together, and this is what they're starting to look like. Okay, when you open them out, you can see there we've got that staggered look. And now what we want to do is find the other end, which I've got here, and you can see that's nice and flat and I don't have any twists to worry about. I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and I'm just going to cut across there just like that and through that stitch. You can unpick the stitch if you want, and then I'm just going to open that up, and that's the other end. Now a lot of people who create these jelly roll race quilts don't do this next step. It's purely optional, but I like to do it because I like everything to be nice and flat. I'm going to just press the seam to set it, and then I'm going to press it to one side, so it'll look like that. It'll be pressed to one side all the way down. Alright, so I've ironed my seam flat, and I now have my two ends together once again, as you can see here. And so what I'm going to do, I've also done the process of flattening everything out to make sure that there's no tangles or twists, so it's all nice and flat. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew down here with a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so I've sewn all the way down there, and I'll just open it up and show you what it's looking like, so you can see it's all coming together nicely. Okay, so now I'm going to get the other end again. And because we flattened it out, we don't have any wastage at this end. And I'm just going to cut across with my scissors to open that up. Okay, so now we're going to take it to the iron, and we're going to press the seam all the way down the strip, and we're going to press it to one side just as we did before. Alright, so we've ironed those all nice and flat, and what we're going to do is we've got the two ends here, and once again we're going to place one on top of the other, and we're going to sew all the way down again with a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so it's coming together nicely. We're just about there. So it's that. Now I'll just take the other end again. Open that up, and then once more we're going to place one side on top of the other, just like that, and sew down here with a 1/4 inch seam. So that was the last seam that we had to sew, and I've sewn that down here. You can see that there, and then this is what it's coming together to look like. Now we still have to cut down the end here, so I'll do that now. Bring that all together. Okay, just open her up. And that's what it's going to look like. So now it's just a matter of adding some borders and doing some binding and quilting, and you'll have a baby quilt top. Okay, so I've given it a press and I think it looks lovely. I'm very pleased with it, and I'm very happy with the fabric. So if you've been concerned about using Temu fabric, I certainly would give it a go. It's reasonable quality, and I think it's quite pretty. Alright, so just to finish this quilt off, I've added a 1-inch white border, and I also went and purchased some green spotty fabric that I thought looked really nice and goes nicely with this. So I've added a 3-inch border on the side, and I've also bought enough of that for the backing. Okay, so this is one that I made using strips that are the same size as I got in the Temu haul. So they are 2.5 inches by 19 3/4 inches. And I just used scraps from my stash, and I've added borders, and I've also done this with the backing because I didn't have enough of any particular colour to make a full backing, so I've just pieced together a piece. And then, I mean, like, you probably wouldn't use this as a baby quilt, but you could use it as a lap quilt. It'd certainly do for that. And what I'm intending to do, and I don't know how this will go, is I'm going to do the quilting with this quilting ruler. So I've been doing a little bit of practice, and hopefully it'll go well. So that's my plan. And then if you use all 40 strips, this is also made from scraps in my stash using the same measurements, you can make a toddler quilt. Now, I'd probably want to, if you want to make it wider, I'd add an extra border just down the sides. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now, how great and bright is that? I just love it. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. And again, I cut the strips to the same size as I got in the Temu haul. And so you can see that it works out very well. Okay, so there you go. Now, if you've enjoyed this tutorial, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.